My brother stole my ex-wife, a doctor, and mocked me during his wedding speech. My ugly, unlovable brother is still single. Any takers? My ex-wife laughed, he's second-hand, but still usable. As the crowd erupted in laughter. But at that moment, one woman stood up. Andrew picked up the old album and quietly turned its pages. The soft evening light filtered through the bedroom window of his apartment in La Jolla, San Diego's upscale neighborhood. The smiling faces of himself and Michelle in the photographs now felt like distant memories. Michelle in her modest student uniform and himself in his white medical coat. Those days when they shared their dreams over cheap coffee from the hospital cafeteria. Listen, Andrew. When I become a doctor, I'll make you happy. It might be tough now, but there will definitely be a day when it all pays off. Michelle's words from back then still echoed in his ears. Andrew had supported his wife through medical school while working night shifts as a nurse. They lived in a modest apartment, rarely ate out, never bought luxury items, yet they were happy. Those days spent in their cramped room filled with Michelle's medical textbooks, encouraging her as she studied. He would make late-night snacks before her exams and massage her tired shoulders, believing in their future together. At least, that's what Andrew believed. Among the pile of photographs spread out on the bed, his wedding ring caught the light. Their names and the date engraved on the thin platinum band. Andrew quietly removed the ring and placed it in a small blue jewelry box inherited from his grandfather. He couldn't stop the tears from rolling down his cheeks. Outside the window, the California sun was painting the sky crimson. Looking back, his relationship with his brother Jason had always been complicated. Memories at their parents' house always centered around Jason. His flashy blonde brother family attention was focused on his brother. Andrew, you're the older brother, so you need to be understanding. You're the smart one, so you have to be considerate of Jason. His mother's words still stung his heart. Even in family photos, Jason was always in the center while Andrew was pushed to the side. Christmas presents, birthday celebrations, Jason was always the star. But that was fine, Andrew thought. They were family after all. His wish for his brother's happiness was genuine. Then that day came. A single message on Michelle's smartphone changed everything. In the hallway of San Diego Memorial Hospital, he accidentally saw the screen displaying love messages from his brother and photos of them together. Secret meetings at expensive restaurants, weekend hotel stays, secretly exchanged words of love. It had all been planned. Andrew. Are you all right? You look pale. If his fellow nurse hadn't supported him, he would have collapsed right there. The world turned black, and he felt himself crumbling from the ground up. Everything he had built over 7 years of marriage was crumbling like a castle made of sand. A transfer to a new workplace, Scripps Mercy Hospital, became Andrew's salvation. Here, the smiles of sick children gradually began to heal his heart. In the pure eyes of children fighting serious illnesses, Andrew found his calling. Perhaps his meeting with Director Diana was destined as well. Mr. Brown, your work is outstanding. We're truly fortunate to have a nurse like you at our hospital. In Diana's gentle voice and warm gaze, Andrew gradually began to find hope. Maybe at this hospital, in this place, he could start a new life. A small light began to shine in his wounded heart. As the sun set and the room gradually darkened, Andrew finally stood up. He carefully put away the scattered photos one by one and returned the album to the bookshelf. Tomorrow would bring another new day. He had decided not to look back at the past anymore. Just then, an invitation arrived in his mailbox. The golden letters printed on high-quality paper cast an ominous gleam in the twilight. Andrew's hands trembled slightly as he held the invitation. A wedding at the Manchester Grand Hyatt. The text embossed in gold leaf on the premium paper gleamed seductively in the evening light. The reception venue was on the top floor overlooking San Diego Bay. At sunset, the grand windows would offer a spectacular California view. Andrew, you'll come, won't you? We want the whole family to celebrate. Jason is looking forward to having you there. His mother's phone call naturally assumed his attendance. Her voice carried a cheerfulness as if nothing had happened, the affair between his brother and ex-wife, the pain of divorce, all of it seemingly forgotten. Should I really go? Everyone will. Andrew consulted with his colleague Carl in the hospital break room. Outside the window, yachts bobbed on San Diego Bay, their white sails catching the breeze. Carl was his only confidant at his new workplace, and knew everything about Andrew's situation. Andrew, you've done nothing wrong. Go there with your head held high. Those two are the ones who should be ashamed. Carl said while gently holding his hand. The veteran nurse's eyes held a deep look of compassion. With his gray streaked hair pulled back, he looked almost fatherly. But I'm afraid of everyone's eyes. Even our parents are on my brother's side. Andrew's voice trembled. The fresh coffee aroma rose from the cup on the table. Show them your strength. If you run away, you're playing right into their hands. Besides, life often holds unexpected happiness. Andrew nodded slightly at Carl's words. At that time, he had no idea how prophetic those words would prove to be. On the wedding day, the ballroom at the Manchester Grand Hyatt was decorated like a fairy tale. The light falling from massive chandeliers seemed like angels' tears. An arch of white roses and lilies adorned the altar, and the deep red carpet leading to it seemed like a path of blood. Pure white Tiffany chairs were arranged neatly, and the tables were covered with the finest linens. Andrew, dressed in a modest light blue suit, took a seat at the edge of the venue. The silver watch on his wrist was a keepsake from his late grandfather. It was his support now. His parents sat in the front row, wearing proud expressions. As he walked between the guests, he felt their cold stares. Even former friends showed distant attitudes. People he had conversed with normally just yesterday now turned away as if they didn't know him. "I shouldn't have come. Carl, I trusted your words." His whispered words echoed emptily in his own ears. The luxurious venue decorations made his heart feel even heavier. Then the ceremony began. As the solemn sound of the pipe organ filled the venue, Jason entered wearing a pure white tuxedo. The designer brand suit fit elegantly like a cloud. A platinum watch adorned his wrist, and a Cartier cufflinks graced his sleeves. Michelle stood in her finest wedding gown, wearing a smug expression. The couple exchanging vows before the pastor. The exchange of rings. And then, the radiant kiss scene. Everything looked like a perfect wedding. However, in Andrew's heart, an unquenchable pain continued to swirl. The wife he had supported through 7 years of marriage. The brother he had cherished. Those two were now pledging their love on the altar. The reception began, and champagne was poured. Over 200 guests enjoyed the luxurious food while offering words of congratulation to the seemingly happy newlyweds. Waiters carried dishes of foie gras and caviar, the chef's special prime rib, and a 5-tiered pure white wedding cake. Everything was a perfectly orchestrated celebration of happiness. And then that moment arrived. Jason took the microphone and looked around the venue with a bright expression. His eyes deliberately caught Andrew's seat. As the venue fell silent, Jason's voice rang out. His cheeks, flushed with champagne, showed an unnatural redness. "Today, on our happy day, we have our dear family here with us." His voice dripped with artificial kindness. Michelle stood next to her groom with a somewhat complacent expression. "Especially my brother Andrew, who has joined us." "Hey, Andrew, could you stand up for a moment?" Andrew's body froze at the sudden call out. His heart was pounding. However, prompted by the surrounding stares, he slowly stood up. His legs were shaking, and he felt like he might collapse at any moment. "I'd like to hear a few words from him as a family representative." Jason's lips curled into a malicious smile. His eyes gleamed like a cat that had caught its prey. "Everyone, please look at my brother. He's my ugly brother who nobody loves. Is there anyone who would take him?" Laughter spread through the venue. Andrew's face turned pale. The leather of his wallet, gripped tightly in both hands, became damp with sweat. At that moment, Michelle stood up and took the microphone. Her mouth wore an arrogant smile that she had never shown during her medical school days. "He's used goods, but still usable. I guarantee it." Roaring laughter filled the venue. Even his parents wore slight smiles. Andrew lowered his eyes, desperately biting his trembling lips. He struggled to hold back the tears threatening to fall down his cheeks. The words, "with love and blessings," written on the invitation now seemed like a cruel mockery. Just then, the sound of a chair scraping echoed from the back of the venue. Slowly, a woman stood up. It was Diana. Her presence was dignified, like a lighthouse standing tall in a storm. Her straight-backed figure in a navy suit was full of authority. The atmosphere in the venue changed instantly. Jason's smile froze, and the blood drained from Michelle's face. All eyes turned to Diana. She walked forward with measured steps. Each step echoed heavily through the venue. When she took the microphone from Jason, his hands could be seen trembling slightly. "I am Diana Carter, Director of the National Children's Medical Center." Her low, steady voice resonated through the venue. It carried the authority of a physician who had saved countless lives. A murmur went through the crowd. "Who is she?" Jason whispered to his wife. Michelle's face tensed. She knew? This was an influential figure at one of America's top children's hospitals. And a physician far beyond her own reach. "Today, I'd like to talk about a nurse." Diana's gaze turned quietly to Andrew. "He is one of the most trusted nurses at our hospital. Even after night shifts, he visits the rooms of critically ill children, holds the hands of exhausted fathers, and continues to encourage them." The venue fell silent. Last month, a 6-month-old baby was brought in with a serious heart condition. The parents were at their wits' end, only able to cry. At that time, Andrew stayed with that baby for 48 hours, barely resting. Diana took a photo from her pocket. "Look at this photo. A smiling baby and parents. And Andrew, smiling kindly despite his tired face. Isn't this true love and dedication?" Suddenly, a voice rose from the back of the venue. A man stood up. In his arms was a boy about 8 years old. "This is my son Samuel. 2 years ago, he was in critical condition with severe pneumonia. Mr. Andrew reads storybooks to Samuel every day. He held my son's hand as he suffered from high fever, never letting go. Samuel's father, James Wilson's voice was trembling. When he took a turn for the worse in the middle of the night, Andrew was the first to rush to his side. My son is alive, thanks to him. He is our angel. At those words, people began standing up all around the venue. Colleagues from the Children's Hospital, patients' families. They were witnesses to the lives Andrew had saved. One after another, moving testimonies were shared. Words of gratitude for Andrew flooded the venue. Diana took the microphone again. Yes, he is a treasure at our hospital. Saving children in life-threatening conditions, maintaining hope even in desperate situations. Who could say such a person is unloved by anyone? At those words, the expressions of the guests transformed. The previous mockery disappeared, replaced by deep respect. The brother and Michelle's faces turned pale. The parents looked down. Furthermore, there is something else I must tell you. Diana's voice grew even stronger. Recently, we received preliminary notification from the American Pediatric Nursing Association about their annual Excellence in Nursing Award. The recipient is Andrew Brown. Loud applause erupted from the venue. Andrew stood rooted to the spot, unable to stop his tears. It felt like all his past hardships had been rewarded. Diana's gaze turned to Michelle. Her eyes were sharp, carrying a judgmental gleam. Aren't you ashamed as a doctor? Falsifying patient records, taking an intimidating attitude toward residents, and above all, betraying your husband and carrying on an affair with his brother. My hospital would never hire a doctor like you. Michelle collapsed into her chair. The venue buzzed with whispers. And Mr. Jason. You tried to destroy your brother's life out of mere jealousy. However, truly valuable people don't take pleasure in others' misfortune. They are the ones who save lives and give hope to others. Diana slowly walked toward Andrew's seat. Her figure was as gallant as a princess from a fairy tale. In the sunset-lit venue, the two of them stood illuminated. Silence dominated the venue. All eyes were on them. Andrew, Diana's voice gently called his name. You are the one most deserving of love. I came here today to prove that. I remember well the day I first met you. Despite being exhausted after a night shift, you were reading a storybook at the bedside of a critically ill child. That sight captured my heart. Each of her words sank deep into Andrew's heart. Your smile is a beacon of hope for sick children. Your kindness is the support for families in desperate situations. And your dedication is the pride of our entire hospital staff. The venue was wrapped in silence. I was moved by your passion for your work. And I was deeply drawn to your pure heart. Each day, seeing you became my joy. Large tears rolled down Andrew's cheeks. Diana slowly knelt on one knee. But you have the right to know. The true nature of Michelle Thompson. Diana's voice took on a stern tone. She was a woman who couldn't even maintain basic medical ethics. She only cared about her own achievements without listening to patients' suffering, unreasonable treatment of residents, and most seriously, falsification of medical records. The venue stirred. Michelle's face turned ashen. Let me be specific. Last year's heart surgery mistake. She altered the records to hide her error. Fortunately, the patient survived, but not because of her skills. It was due to the desperate efforts of the emergency team. Michelle tried to stand but her legs shook too much to move. Andrew, Mr. Jason. Your history of affairs. 3 years ago, you had a relationship with a married company president and were sued for damages by her husband. I know that Michelle paid the settlement money. The blood drained from Jason's face. His pure white tuxedo now seemed ironic. Behind these two lay even more serious issues. Michelle's substantial debts. Jason's embezzlement at the beauty salon. Everything is on record. The venue erupted in chaos. Whispers spread among the guests. And the most despicable thing. Diana's voice carried anger. Their affair was planned. Michelle was after Andrew's assets. After marriage, she gradually transferred them to her name. She continued to exploit the savings Andrew had worked so hard to accumulate, under the pretext of medical school expenses. His parents gasped. His mother's face turned pale. Jason was also complicit in this plan. He aimed to monopolize the parents' assets by destroying his brother's happiness. For that purpose, he deliberately continued to hurt Andrew with his words and actions. Andrew was stunned by these facts. Such calculated betrayal had existed. However, the truth always comes to light. Diana pulled an envelope from her pocket. This is Dr. Michelle's termination notice. Evidence of her medical record falsification was revealed in the hospital's investigation. Her medical license will likely be revoked soon. Michelle collapsed into her chair. And Mr. Jason. Your fraud at the beauty salon is under tax investigation. Wasn't this wedding paid for with embezzled money? Jason broke down crying. His pure white tuxedo crumpled as he fell to the floor like a fallen angel. However, I didn't come here to expose this. Diana's voice regained its gentleness. I came to prove true love. Andrew, far from being unloved, you are the person most deserving. She held up a ring again. The ring caught the sunset light, casting a rainbow glow. Andrew Brown. Will you marry me? Let me cherish your pure heart and your kindness towards others for the rest of my life. A collective gasp escaped from the venue. Tears glistened in the guests' eyes. Samuel Wilson, led by his father, stepped forward. In his small hands was a bouquet of white roses. Be happy, the innocent voice brought large tears streaming from Andrew's eyes. With a trembling voice, Andrew responded. Yes. I would love to. Thunderous applause erupted from the venue. Even his parents were now standing, tears streaming down their faces. Diana gently slipped the ring onto Andrew's finger. It felt completely different from the ring Michelle had given him 7 years ago, both in weight and meaning. Let's walk this path together, for the sake of the children's smiles. Diana embraced Andrew. At that moment, the chandeliers caught the sunset light, enveloping the couple in what seemed like a blessing of light. Jason and Michelle had already left the venue. But now, no one cared about that. In the face of true love's triumph, hatred and jealousy all fade away. 1 year later, on a spring day, soft sunlight streamed through the pediatric ward at Scripps Mercy Hospital. Andrew Carter adjusted his crisp new head nurse uniform while gazing out at the San Diego cityscape through the window. Andrew, how are the preparations for the new ward coming along? Diana gently called from behind. Their wedding rings gleamed in the morning light. Yes, everything's on track for next month's opening. Staff training is proceeding as planned. Andrew's voice was filled with fulfillment. Their dream was taking shape, the establishment of a specialized pediatric cancer ward. It was a pioneering initiative in the United States, aiming to combine state-of-the-art medical facilities with warm, compassionate care. Samuel was discharged yesterday. Complete recovery. The little boy who gave you the rose bouquet at the wedding? Yes. Now he says he wants to become a nurse when he grows up. He calls me his angel nurse. Andrew's eyes grew moist. His past suffering had transformed into genuine joy. Just then, there was a knock at the door. Son, may we come in? It was his father Thomas's voice. His mother Martha stood behind him. Their expressions no longer held any trace of their former arrogance. Dad, Mom, what brings you here? Well, we have something important to discuss. His father's trembling hands produced a photograph. A family photo from 30 years ago. Young Andrew and Jason flanked by their parents. We're truly sorry. For always favoring Jason, for trampling on your feelings. His mother's voice caught in her throat. But that wedding day, we finally realized what true love is, what family bonds really mean. His father continued. We'd like to take a new family photo. This time with you and Diana, and just then, their surrogate's pregnancy test results came in positive. Yes, the news of new life. The surrogacy arrangement confirmed 3 months ago. Tears glistened in his parents' eyes. We'll be good grandparents this time. Fair and kind. Andrew quietly nodded at his mother's words. Thank you, Mom. Dad. Diana watched with a gentle smile as the three embraced. Meanwhile, what had become of Michelle? After having her medical license revoked, she had left San Diego and was working as a clerk at a small clinic in rural Arizona. She had sold her luxury car and spent her days struggling to repay her debts. But what hurt most was the cold stares from former colleagues. That's the former doctor who falsified medical records. Such whispers still reached her ears. As for Jason, he had fallen into an even more miserable situation. The embezzlement at the beauty salon was discovered, leading to criminal charges. Though he received a suspended sentence, his social media followers plummeted. His flashy lifestyle had transformed into barely scraping by as a temp beautician in a rural Nevada town. Bro, I'm sorry. Every night, he whispered these words alone in his room. However, there was no longer any hatred in Andrew's heart. His happy days with his new family had healed all wounds. Andrew, it's time for the meeting. Diana's voice brought Andrew back to the present. From the large windows of the pediatric ward, he could see yachts floating on San Diego Bay. He remembered Carl's words from 7 years ago. Life often holds unexpected happiness. How true that had been. Real happiness had been waiting beyond the struggles he'd overcome. Andrew smiled softly while thinking about their future child. Well, shall we go? For our dream ward. Taking Diana's hand, Andrew started walking. The corridor was decorated with photographs of smiling children. Each one was his pride and joy. The spring light gently illuminated the future of the new family. Everything had ended, and everything had begun. Led by true love.